Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Denver Startup Week Pitch Competition. I'm Kurt Roberts. I'm the MC for tonight's events and a partner at Kickstart Seed Fund. We're the title sponsor for the competition. So a little bit about Kickstart. Kickstart is a seed stage venture capital fund that's based here in the Rockies. We do investing throughout Utah and Colorado and some other states that are surrounding. Colorado is absolutely one of our favorite places to invest. We have a number of companies we've invested in here, including Havenly and Sondermind, a couple of the very favorites that I'm involved in. Our mission is to fuel the best startup companies in the Mountain West. Raising venture capital is hard. Choosing a great partner is even harder. We like to think that we're the partners that you want for the journey, people that are there for the highs and the lows and everything that'll happen in between. And our community platform called Kickstart Collective is one of those places where you really get the resources to help you once you've started. So thanks for joining us. It's our first ever Denver Virtual Startup Week. We're going to do the best we can. If 2020's taught us anything, it's that we're more powerful when we come together as a community to share ideas and help make each other better. And here we are, virtually showing the world what Denver is made of. So again, thanks for joining us live. Tonight, you're going to hear from 20 Denver-based startups, and at the end of the night, 6 of the companies from tonight's events will move on to compete live in the finals tomorrow at 7. So here's a rundown of how the night's going to work. We're going to have 2 pitch rooms going. What you're seeing from the stream here is room 1. 10 companies will present in each room. This channel will show pitch room 1, and to watch the second pitch room, just go to denverstartupweek.com/schedule, and you'll be able to connect into the live stream from that room as well. So before we kick off, just a thank you to a few judges and donors for their contribution tonight. First, to our partner sponsor, Galvanize. Galvanize is a tech ecosystem for learners, entrepreneurs, startups, and established companies that meets the needs of our rapidly changing digital world. Traditionally, industry and education have existed separately. At Galvanize, the gap has been bridged by bringing together industry partners, ambitious students, world-class education, and passionate founders all under one roof. This is the Galvanize community. Next, our member sponsor, Pink Monkey. Pink Monkey Studio is a nationwide expert in the design and production of live and virtual events, transforming everyone into dreamscapes they could have never imagined. They also have a premier custom fabrication division to include draftsmanship, carpentry, fine woodworking, welding, finishing, print shop graphics, painting, and more to transform a company's branding to life. Next, to our preliminary judges, so the judges for tonight's events. First, Barbara Brooks. Barbara is the founder and CEO of Second Act Women. Next is Bo Bergman. He is the COO at Roxbox Containers. We have Carrie Singer, who's the Small Business Services Program Manager at the Denver Office of Economic Development. Daniel Schmidt, who is an angel investor and entrepreneur. We have Dave Westall, an angel investor and entrepreneur. Hannah Annalora, local marketing producer at General Assembly. Ira Coleman, founder of Button and Zipper and Fluent Hustle. Jay Mays, who's a managing partner at Pitch Lab. Kirby Myers, principal at the Communications Refinery. And Osa Ihe, investor and entrepreneur at Black Ice Media. So thanks to our prize package contributors, we have a number of parties that have really made this competition worth it in terms of the prize packages. Three Bridges Consulting, Capital Studio and Novel Co-working, CFO Share, Coffee at the Point, Co-Starters at the Commons, and Denver Downtown Partnership. Next are our track sponsors, Galvanize, General Assembly, Kalen Jesse Photography, Massive Pockets, Name.com, Nano, and Pitch Lab. And then lastly, additional track sponsors are Rockies Venture Club, Sticker Giant, Techstars, TEDx Mile High, the Eldridge Law Firm, and Tonic. So I'd like to also introduce our semifinals judges. In pitch room 1, we have Michael Beavis, the Director of Innovation and Entrepreneurship for the Denver Office of Economic Development. We have Nina Sharma, Interim Executive Director of Project X, EIT, at University of Denver. We have Taryn Elliott, Product Design and User Interface Practice Chair at Polsinelli. Our judges in pitch room 2, Ellen Caviglia Clark, the co-founder and CEO of Tonic. Saba Karim, Global Startup Pipeline Manager at Techstars, and then Virginia Chow, who's the Director of Deal Flow for Capital Studio. So with this as an introduction, good luck to all the semifinalists tonight that'll be participating in both rooms. Please don't forget to tune in tomorrow at 7, where the companies that will compete to take home the grand prize will be judged and the final winner will be announced. Thanks very much.
Third time's a charm, right? So if you already didn't know, we are all human. And being human gives us the unique power of empathy. I realized my power of empathy about a year ago. I was talking to my friend Ashley and asked her why she wasn't in the IB program, the advanced curriculum program in our school, expecting her to say that it was too much homework or something. Instead, she said that her family couldn't afford paying for the different tests and costs and test prep material. And she said that she would rather have her younger siblings take the programs and activities they wanted to. I don't know what shocked me more, the fact that she was happy to give up something for her siblings, or the fact that the system wasn't supporting her. I knew that as a person who has had the privilege to have the opportunity of a choice and have the resources that I need, I could do something small or big. I gathered a group of equally passionate team members and created a 501c3 nonprofit to give educational resources to students. However, we realized that the problem wasn't just topical and not just based on economic inequality. It was a deep-rooted systematic problem that affected all socioeconomic statuses. 1 in 6 students experience poverty, and on top of that, Colorado ranks 46th in education funding, which means students that don't have financial access in their house may not have the most support in their schools as well. And only 57% of minority students have access to college readiness resources and courses like the AP and IB program. And majority white school districts get $23 billion more in funding than non-white school districts. The problem was clear and the need was there. In order to address this issue efficiently, we created a 3-pronged approach: educate, activate, and advocate. In our educate pillar, we aim to educate the public about this disparity because only when people know about the problem are they able to do anything about it. In our activate pillar, we want to give actual tangible resources to students to advance their educational and personal career. In the advocate pillar, we want to create long-term change. By talking to policymakers and lawmakers, we hope to create a systematic change that will last for generations after us. And through our research, we found that this cycle starts early. So we made it our mission to help all K-12 students and all socioeconomic statuses in need of support. In trying times like the COVID-19 pandemic, we know that anything can happen at any time. So we want to be there for any students in need of support. Some of our projects are the Aspire box. You can click the next one. And we realized that many students wanted to take AP and IB tests. However, these books are expensive. And although they can provide college credit, many students didn't have access to these resources. But on the other hand, we realized that many test prep companies, students, schools, and libraries were just discarding these resources, even though they're only lightly used and can easily be reused. So we found a way to redistribute these resources to students in need, and we collect these books and directly ship them to students who aren't able to afford them. And we have our Classroom Connections program. In the Classroom Connections program, we conduct bi-weekly workshops with elementary school students in at-risk neighborhoods to help them develop academic skills and help teach them how to advocate for themselves. And in our Aspire network is a project we are on the ground and working on as I speak, and we are launching in the next few months. With our goal, the Aspire Network is trying to revolutionize the college admissions process. Many students are in need of gaining mentors and support with the college admissions process. However, with our model, we don't just want to provide them with essay writing workshops or webinars. We want to provide them a community of other students and mentors to help them through it and act as a friend. And with these projects so far, we've donated over 110 books to over 100 students in 7 different schools. We've garnered over $5,000 in donations to help with these projects and future projects. And we've conducted workshops with over 100 students in 3 different schools. And we have a lot coming up next. But the few things that we're looking forward to in the next few months is launching our advocacy campaign to create awareness about the education disparity and to create systematic change. We also want to launch our Scholar Fund, which would sponsor the cost of AP and IB tests and provide microgrants for computer, technology, and other programs. And as I said before, with our Aspire Network, we want to create a new comprehensive community that will provide students access to other students and mentors as well. With our support from our sponsors, donations, and our wonderful advisory team that are filled with educated people in the educated sector and lawmakers, we're able to do a lot. However, we know we can do more with more. With more financial capabilities and resources, in the educate pillar, we want to create a professional platform to educate others. We want to launch a docuseries that will bring out stories like Ashley's to the world, because it's not just the statistics that matter, it's the individual stories behind it. In the Activate pillar, we want to be able to ship these new donations and books to students anywhere in Colorado, regardless if they're in a rural or frontier area. And we want to work on creating a platform for our free mentorship and college counseling arena. In the Advocate pillar, we want to create a professional image to implement actual policy change. And none of this could be done without our wonderful team. Although we are a youth-led organization, we come from many different backgrounds, socioeconomic status, and stories. But the one thing that unites us is a passion to do more, learn more, and give more. And we have many other students in many different schools all across Colorado willing to make a change in their community. You may ask, why us? Not only are we a youth-led, diverse group of students, but we want to provide personalized support. We know it's important not to just mass distribute resources, but connect with students individually and go through the process with them. We also want to take a proactive approach and provide resources early on so students have the resources to begin with. We want to give students the power of a choice. No student should have to choose between their education and basic needs. And we want you to join us in sharing this passion and creating a larger impact among students in Colorado and further. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Can you remind me of your first name?
My first name?
Yeah.
Ananya.
Ananya, thank you.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about your target market? Is it students directly, or is it their families or school districts or clubs?
It's students directly. We want to focus on students and connect with students individually rather than focusing on institutions or entities.
Great, thank you.
Could you talk a little bit about your strategy for bringing awareness within that target market to your company and to your mission?
Yeah. Wait, sorry, could you say that again?
Could you talk a little bit about your strategy for bringing awareness within your target market to your mission?
Yeah. So basically, our way of creating awareness about the issue with our target market is first, I think, honestly, one-on-one interaction is so important. So we try to go to schools one-on-one, meet with our principals, meet with students, and connect with them. And we obviously, with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been trying to do more virtual and Zoom sessions with different people and just educate them as much as we can. And even like with Denver Startup Week, we registered our presentations tomorrow, come and see. But even using platforms like this to educate different people about the issue.
Great, thank you. Can you talk a little bit about the business model itself? You mentioned that you're registered as a 501c3, so talk a little bit about how you're bringing money into the organization, and then you mentioned some other things about access to other schools and maybe having student-led chapters in other schools. Did I hear that right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, so with our 501c3 organization, we get a lot of donations, obviously from grants and different social enterprise organizations that give money. We also have an advisory board that helps us, that are a group of adults in the education sector and law and policy sector that provide us with direction and advice about how to go about it. And they also provide us with monetary support as needed. And as I said, since we are a youth-led organization, we have students from many different schools across Colorado. And so whatever school we get volunteers from, we ask them to start a student-led chapter in their school so that any student has a person to go to within their school itself. And then if they need support, they come to us and we can direct them in any way that they need.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
What's your plan for scalability? Because shipping, there's a lot of constraints around shipping physical products and physical books. So how do you plan to actually scale this?
Yeah, so actually shipping was actually the easiest thing for us, especially with books. Many companies like USPS have the option for media mail with books that allows us to ship any amount of books under 70 pounds easily across the United States for a very low price. And this allows us to ship any amount of books. We've shipped over shipments of 10 books, 12 books to students who are in need of them. And we know this is scalable because of that. And it's not just in the United States, we can expand it, or all over the United States, not just in Colorado.
Can you talk a little bit about, am I correct in understanding that you're a student in
Yes,
the
I am a
K-12
student.
system now, correct? So walk us through a little bit about what happens when you graduate and go off to college yourself. What's the sustainability model of what you've created?
So that's the best part of being youth-led is there's always underclassmen. So in our team, we make sure it's a diverse group and also not just backgrounds, but also in age as well. So we have in our executive board, we have juniors, sophomores and freshmen as well, and we kind of train them as we go along. And then once we go off, the people, I still want to be part of the organization, of course, but we let the people in high school handle the day-to-day operations, and we've already started to shift gears and let the other people take reins and start going about like that. And we want to create that same chain of command almost.
Great, thank you.
Do you talk a little bit about your branding strategy and whether you have or plan to take any steps in terms of intellectual property to protect that strategy?
Yeah, so in terms of intellectual property, we have, as I said before, advisory board guides us on how to protect our intellectual property. And as a registered 501c3, we've been keeping our records straight, and we make sure to sign privacy agreements with all of our board members and our volunteers so that none of our upcoming campaigns or ideas aren't going public before we are launching them.
Do you have any, is there anyone else who's doing this?
Like this similar.
And I mean, it's nonprofit, so it's less of a competitor, but is there any other organization that is focusing on this, access to these kind of books? And
so I've seen a lot of organizations that focus on like tutoring or giving like just educational, like financial support. But I actually haven't seen any organizations that go into the idea of redistributing and reallocating resources already in the system. And I think that's what stands us apart. We're not just about giving money or giving money to students or giving like tutoring support. It's more about like using the resources that we already have and bringing them to students again.
Thank you. I think our time is up.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you so much,
Nice
guys, for the opportunity.
Hi everyone, I am Tim Krebs, the CFO of Dynacloud, and we're here to talk about the energy markets today. Slide. Yep. So we live in a world with 7.8 billion humans that consume somewhere around 90 million barrels of oil a day. Our world really needs diverse and reliable sources of energy. There's great things happening in renewables and EVs, etc. But like it or not, our world needs oil and gas today. We founded Dynacloud to bring modern technologies, mainly AI and smart grid technologies, to help oil and gas companies operate more responsibly, but also more profitably. Slide. So what's happening in the landscape? We've all had quite a year here in 2020. Oil and gas has had a heck of a roller coaster. Recently, the US became the world's largest producer of oil. The small problem is we oversupplied the market and we bankrupted ourselves. The sector has been an absolute dumpster fire for most equity investors. You know, negative oil earlier this year was probably the biggest wake-up call our industry has ever seen. We're at a massive inflection point. At that, there's going to be companies that win and companies that lose. The companies that win are going to be those that adopt new technologies and maximize the value of their production. The companies that lose are going to be the ones that do nothing and go back to the old mentalities. Slide. So there's about 1 million oil and gas wells in the US. We're a very large industry and a very complex industry. So we know we need to change. What are the problems? What are the bottlenecks? The major ones that we see at Dynacloud are oil well controls are extremely outdated. Additionally, most oil well controls require a static decision by a single employee. Furthering that point, so it's a static decision by an employee. Additionally, many of those decisions can only be made locally at each well. So you can think of it, these are photos in West Texas and Wyoming of employees have to drive around to many of these wells, making decisions, let alone drive to them to make those decisions. The other kind of piece of information I'll give, many of these wells have a 60 horsepower electric motor that is just wasting electricity. We see this in the US wasting $900 million a year of electricity, which is equal to about 1.8 million pounds of CO2 that is just being wasted unnecessarily. Slide. So here at Dynacloud, we founded the company to bring modern technologies to the energy sector and oil and gas companies. How do we do this? We use AI, cloud computing, and smart grid technologies to make intelligent oil fields. The way that we think of this is that historically an oil well is thought of as just a single isolated system. We at Dynacloud took a different view and said, you know, we live in the days of IoT and connected devices. What if we viewed a series of wells, like you saw on the last page, as being connected to an intelligent system that can operate them at maximum efficiency? So that's what we've done. We've developed a hardware and software solution using AI, IoT, and smart grid to make these changes. So moving from the concept and how we want to help the industry, the RP20 is our first commercial product. We spent about 4 years R&Ding it, and we launched it last summer, 2019. So the RP20 is a control system for rod pump style oil wells. This is a picture of a rod pump oil well. There's about 350,000 of them in the US. It's about a $5 billion TAM we're going after to sell these into. As you can see, this is a big piece of steel that's controlled by a 60 horsepower motor, and there's really simple controls that run this piece of machinery. By using the Dynacloud system, we're seeing customers save electricity, which means indirectly they're reducing their CO2 emissions. The equipment's run more efficient, so it's experiencing less stress and breaking less often. You can imagine the value proposition when your well just breaks and is not producing. And lastly, employees are empowered through autonomous decision-making that they can control from their iPhone. So you can see here in the upper left, this is the RP20. It's a very simple piece of hardware that we build. We mount it on the well, and it connects that well to the cloud, into other, into that connected system. So it's a very simple piece of hardware, but it's doing very complex functions. Move on. As I said, we built Dynacloud really for growth. The RP20 was just product number one. We feel our software platform is highly versatile. It's code written up in the cloud by 2 of my colleagues. And we feel we can take this code and connect it to various types of hardware, whether it's third party or proprietary like our RP20, to perform different industry applications. So we can connect our software to temperature monitors and pressure sensors and amp meters to do different functions. These will be within the oil and gas sector, and into adjacent industries. Something we're also super excited about is we are now in the beta testing of bringing smart grid technologies into the oil patch. We just created a device and installed it last week in Texas as our beta project. That is, it gets back to that connected grid. So you could imagine thousands of 60 horsepower electric motors. We now have a system to control those to do demand management, run them when electricity is cheaper, as well as peak shaving for those fields. We're the first company doing this, and we're super excited about the growth on it. The last slide here. So kind of summing all this up, I hope I've demonstrated our industry is at this inflection point. We feel companies either have to change or they won't exist in 10 years. So we feel that Dynacloud, we're bringing new technologies to the oil space that'll help companies be more responsible and also more profitable. So you can see more at dynacloud.io. Thank you.
Can you talk real briefly? You made a lot of comments about the 60 horsepower motor that currently exists there. Refresh my memory on how your system is helping with that problem and the electricity that they're consuming, et cetera.
Yep. To keep this short, that motor, it runs and it's making that big piece of steel go up and down. That motor has a control system where an employee just makes one entry on essentially how fast to run it. 20 RPMs, he might adjust that every week, every month, every quarter. With our system, we're monitoring that in real time through AI. And therefore, what we see are that humans being humans, most people set that motor to run too fast because they think faster means more oil. Not the case. We're seeing this in proof in the field. We can slow down that motor from running 24 hours a day to maybe 16 hours a day. Therein you can capture, we're seeing 10 to 30% less runtime, thereby less electricity to the operators.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your team? Who else is working on this with you?
Yes, so we are a strong team of 4 of us here. I'm the CFO, and the 3 founders were all engineers by background. The CEO really spent his career out in the oil patches of West Texas and Argentina, and that's where he was in charge of trying to optimize these exact type of wells and just said, I could do this better myself. So that was back in 2015. His name's Jaime. He started building this device in his garage, just classic story. And then we teamed up with 2 software engineers, Tyler Colden and Pedro Borges, who are both software guys, helped build the software for Dynacloud. So there's 4 of us today, and soon to be another sales guy, which we're psyched about. So.
What's your current intellectual property strategy, and how do you see it evolving over time as your company grows?
Yeah, that's great. You can Google oil well controls, and we merely, they've been around since the 50s and 60s, the way that you control these types of wells. We do have a patent filed on our hardware system. We got comments a few weeks ago. We're hopeful that'll come in, but very candidly, people can just do a very simple, different type of configuration on the hardware, and the patent doesn't really protect things. What protects it is really, honestly, just going fast and getting our systems out there into the market is a much better strategy than trying to just, patent everything up, is really the way that we've seen it so far. So.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about your business model? So you're making a hardware system. There's a software application to it. You talked about the $5 billion TAM. Talk to us how you're going to monetize that.
Absolutely. So we're following a leasing model. Customers do have the option, if they want to buy it, we'll gladly sell it to them. But the stress in the oil industry, every dollar is being very closely guarded. So we're just out there, hey, we'll install this thing for free, get it running, just pay us a few $100s per well per month. Right now we're signing 12-month contracts. We're growing in as we gain really, we're not the new kids on the block. We'll be signing multi-year contracts with these customers. So it's a very sticky kind of customer base we're going after, where a customer is not just going to come and buy all of these for all of their wells. I wish. It's just not the way the oil industry works. They'll buy a few, pilot them, see how they work, and then we've had great conversion rates, them then going into buying 50s, 100s hopefully thousands of these. And right now we've got 5 customers all at the pilot stage. 2 have already started buying what we call follow-on systems. So we're really hopeful that that we'll be doing this. So
Great, thank you.
Following up on that, is this a sustainable revenue model, or are you seeking funding for this? Is that revenue model sustainable, or are you seeking funding?
Yep. So we have a classic J curve of where the financial model basically shows we will burn money for the next 2.5 years, right? We are generating revenue today, but when you're leasing something, it's a much longer J curve. So we see it really that really the numbers we see we'll be break even in about 30 months. But we think if we raise $5 million, which we're in the process of going out to do, we can be a $15 million EBITDA company at the end of 5 years. So very capital efficient strategy with recurring revenues.
Great, thanks.
I'm not sure how much time we have, but okay.
You can do a dance. So.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for listening. So.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Scott, and I am the founder of fastmap.io. Thank you all for being here today. This is a project that I started about a month and a half ago. Next slide, please. So in a single sentence, FastMap parallelizes your Python code in the cloud. Next slide. So what does that mean? First, let's explain what is the map in FastMap. Map is a common computer programming paradigm which basically says, given a function, apply this function to every element in a list. So if, for example, we have a function that adds 5 onto any number that's passed into it, and we pass in 1, 2, 3, we get out 6, 7, 8. Next slide. To take another example, say we have a function that, given a strand of DNA, will give us a folded protein. Now, if we give that function the human genome, we will get out every protein in the human body. MAP is a very ubiquitous concept in computer programming. There is not likely to be an app on your phone that does not utilize MAP in some way. Next slide. So what does FastMap do? FastMap takes what would be a computation on a single processor and spreads that computation across multiple processors, both on your computer and on the cloud. It takes as many processors as it needs to get the job done as fast as possible. The end result is faster code. Next slide. So for those of you who are familiar with this industry, you might realize that this is basically just distributed computing, and distributed computing is not exactly new. There are a lot of different frameworks and products out there that fit various niches in this industry. So why am I creating something new? Next slide. The problem with all of these frameworks is that distributed computing has a key problem, which is that apart from being hard and expensive, sorry, I lost my train of thought right there. We've got a bit of a messed up slide. Apart from being hard and expensive, it is also complicated. It being complicated means that it takes a lot of engineers to set these things up to maintain them. And that also means that you get a lot of cost because engineers are expensive. Next slide. Just to really nail in this point, what you are looking at right here is the AWS IM model. Now, if you want to deploy anything on AWS, which is the largest cloud platform, you need to understand this model to some extent. If you are looking at this and you are confused, you are not alone. Next slide. For most people, it turns out that they're not trying to do anything particularly complicated with distributed computing. For them, they just want to make their code run as quick as possible. Next slide. And that takes us to FastMap. What you are looking at on this slide is 2 blocks of code. At the top is a fairly simple map function, and at the bottom is the same map function with FastMap applied to it. At the top, it will run on a single CPU, and on the bottom with 3 extra lines of code, it will be parallelized to as many CPUs as it takes in the cloud to get the job done. With FastMap, you have no deploys, you have no server management, and you can run any arbitrary code. Next slide. As far as market positioning, FastMap fits nicely in the middle. You want to use FastMap when map is too slow, but spinning up a new service would be overkill. Next slide. FastMap would target 3 primary markets. The first would be data scientists. These would be folks who are doing pre-processing of data and can use FastMap to make that pre-processing run faster. They need this sort of thing immediately. The second would be academic researchers. These are the people who are folding proteins, for example. The third would be tech companies. For them, they are currently stuck in this situation where they have a complex architecture that is driven by our new cloud paradigm. For them, FastMap would dramatically simplify what they are trying to do. Next slide. Apart from having a simple interface, FastMap has simple pricing. It is $10 for 200 vCPU hours. As cheap as that sounds, that is also 4 times the cost of goods sold, which provides a healthy margin for a little bit of extra safety. Next slide. The cloud computing market is large and it is getting larger fast. AWS, the market leader, brought in $35 billion in 2019, and they grew at 36% year over year. They are the slowest growing company on this slide. Next slide. For our competitive advantage, I want to bring back this slide again just to emphasize a point. The distributed computing companies have this inherent complexity, and this complexity is baked deeply into their products. They cannot just simply get rid of this. FastMap, by contrast, is simple, and it does one thing and one thing well, which is to make your code run faster. Next slide. With funding, I would do two things. First, I would pursue aggressive sales and marketing. The FastMap MVP is all but complete, and there are already several interested people in this. Having been in this industry for many years, I can say that this is something that is needed acutely. Number two, I would add a couple of features. I will not go into detail on those features, but those features would require engineers, which would provide good paying jobs for the city of Denver. Next slide. And that is all. It seems like I got in right under my 7 minutes. Thank you all for listening. What questions can I help you all with?
Thank you for that. My not being a coding type person, it's super complex for me to understand. Okay. But all of that said, you make a great case for it, but why hasn't anyone done this previously?
So there are two reasons for that that I can think of. The first is that this is a relatively new problem. We've kind of gotten to the end of Moore's Law, where computers are not getting any faster. And at the same time, we are doing new things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, this sort of thing that requires more computing power. And we are really getting to this time in history where this sort of thing becomes more and more necessary. And apart from just being very specialized, everyone kind of needs this sort of parallel computation. My second reason, I have already forgot. I'm sorry.
What's your intellectual property strategy?
The intellectual property strategy will be the same as for any tech company that would be similar for us. The client library is released as something that is open source, and then I am maintaining the backend, which is a closed sourced proprietary model. It's possible that there are patentable things in this company, but I've not explored that yet.
Can you talk a little bit about the growth strategy? So you listed that on there, how you might execute on funding if you were to receive funding and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. Walk us through kind of what that financial model looks like at the end of year one. You said you just started this a month ago.
Right, a month and a half ago.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So walk us through what do you expect annual recurring revenues to be at in a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, something like that.
Yeah, I think estimating exact numbers is going to be difficult, just given where I'm at with the company right now. Just to walk you through the overall strategy, the 3 markets that I identified, those are more or less in order, because I view data scientists, for example, as being the ones who would be able to adopt this immediately, all on their own without the necessary approval of their bosses or anything like this. Tech companies, which have much larger wallets and much larger needs, need a little bit more of a proof of concept, or just a proof that this is something that makes sense for them to adopt.
I've got 2 questions. One, who's working on this with you? Who's your team?
Yep.
And the other one is, if this takes off, if you get a whole bunch of paying clients and this takes off, what does the world look like in a year if this reaches the scale you want it to reach?
Yep. So I am the only full-time person on this. I have a friend who has been advising me. He's more of a security person. I tend to be more of a data scientist, data engineer. So we have 2 differing viewpoints. He has indicated that if we were to get funding, he would join on full time. And sorry, what was your second question?
What does the world look like?
What does the world look like? The world, cloud computing is easier. Cloud computing is something that is very difficult and it's literally been an albatross for a ton of small to medium-sized tech companies at this time. It is at a breaking point for a lot of these companies where they find it very hard to innovate. And this will make it much, much easier for them to do a lot of the things that will allow them to focus in on their core product more.
How do you foresee maintaining your competitive advantage if others start to move into this space in the future?
I think that there is a first mover's advantage to this sort of thing. I think that it is something to be concerned about, certainly, because this is I don't want to say it's like a simple concept, but it's an obvious concept for people who are in the industry that they want to do this. I will say that I think that it is important to maintain a brand name. There's a reason why you've heard the name AWS, you've heard the name Google Cloud, but you've not heard the name DigitalOcean, or it's far less likely. There are a lot of cloud companies who are much smaller, who do the same things as the big guys, but because they're not the big guys, they're not well known. So being the first to market, I think, is very important here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, mortals. I'm Ed Gazvoda, and for the last 4 decades, I've been working on commercializing technologies and putting in place processes that absolutely help save the planet and the inhabitants of it. But today, what I'm going to talk about is the past, present, and future of fireless cremation. So this is the present. So today I was there working with a fireless cremation system, which you see in the middle, at our funeral home and our crematory right here in the Denver area. And I had one of the engineers come down, Mark Booth, who I'll introduce to you later. And what we do is instead of burning bodies, we have a flameless cremation system. Why is that important? Because families get 100% of the person back. So you can actually have a burial without the need for a crematory, without the need for a cemetery, without the need for a coffin. So what people do is they get these plastics back instead of caskets, and they're reusable. And what they contain is the organic material in someone's body that's been broken down by plant nutrients. So we actually upcycle your cadaver, so you're more beneficial to the earth dead than you would have been if you just died of exposure in the woods. The other thing we do is we give back 100% of your bones, and they're not commingled. In a crematory, you can get up to 2,000 other people in your urn, and you get about half your bones back. The rest of them went out the smokestack. Now, why is cremation just sucks for all of us? The reason is because it contains mercury. So I saw you just take a breath. That last breath you took, 6% of the mercury you breathed in came from crematories. It's a neurotoxin. It's actually the second most hazardous element to humans versus radiation. The other thing is the particulate matter. So yeah, we don't see the black smoke. Why? Because they burn it to a point where it's PM 0.25s, really small particles that affect our circulatory and regulatory systems. In fact, it's the 6th leading cause of death on this earth, and we use it for dead people. So cremation should be outlawed. So the competition, on the right you see a crematory. These crematories sell all in for about $120,000 in the US. We already talked about how these are like the worst thing you could do. On the left, you see me. I'm a competitor. Why? Because I sold the very first alkaline hydrolysis system 10 years ago. My manufacturer bought me out. And he continues to sell systems where they're at 75% to 100% of people go into a funeral home and choose this over a fire cremation. Our target market is funeral homes and entrepreneurs, people that want to compete with funeral homes and existing funeral homes. There's 30,000 of them just in North America. But if you look at the world at large, we don't want to be breathing bad air coming from Europe. Oh, by the way, Europe's got crematories that cost $1 million. Why? Because they're concerned about the health of survivors. So in the US, it's 1/10 that cost. In Europe, it's a lot more because they actually get a lot of the particulates out. But we actually have a plan to reach these 7.8 billion mortals. We're signing a joint venture with a company that's got feet on the street in 62 countries, literally. And so day one, we're going to be out selling systems. In fact, they've already got pre-orders for over 200 systems of our new technology. A little about myself. I did start a company that went public. Again, I told you I was trying to save the planet. Back in college, I started a company that's traded on NASDAQ that reduced acid rain, stuff coming from big utilities, stuff that was killing reefs and making our lakes full of algae. After I sold the first company, I went and worked for SCI. They own 1,600 funeral homes. You probably know them as Ollingers here in Denver. Don't go to them. Come to Sustainable Funeral. But I learned the funeral business. But to make this happen, I'm not a biochemist, right? I'm an entrepreneur. So I got these professors from the University of Northern Colorado who actually came up with our patent pending process. But you don't just need the chemical process, you also need a system. So we actually brought in a Ball Aerospace engineer who's our systems engineer. And he's been working on this since 2010 was the first time I met him. Back in 2010, I also spoke with Mark Guyver. He was actually at, or Mark Muth, he was actually at my facility today. We're there all day doing this dissolution. He actually worked with alkaline hydrolysis and with mad cow. He's actually done more pounds of infectious diseased animals than anybody on the planet. And he's also in Wellington, Colorado, and he's part of our team and his son Peter there too. We also have a patent attorney. And so what is our financials? So rather than showing you what our rent is and what our chemical costs are and what it costs to make a system, let's just use a round number. We sell systems for $105,000. We get 50% down. We sell 400 systems. You'll see us on the New York Stock Exchange. We're almost there already. So what do we need cash to grow? You know, why would we need investors? One of the things is if we had more money, it would accelerate our sales and marketing effort, and we could also do larger production runs at this time. So with fireless cremation, you've got a team of really experienced people that have been in this industry for 25, 30, 40 years, their whole lives. You've got something that's ecological, and we're actually in the trenches. We're literally doing bodies, we're building systems, and we're making things happen. So the world's already on fire. We want you to put out that fire when you die and go back beneficially to the earth. Questions?
Can you talk a little bit about, so this is a device, it's a piece of equipment that goes inside of a funeral home, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so where is it manufactured or assembled? Walk us through that piece a little bit.
It'll be manufactured originally in Wellington, Colorado at Guyver Industries. So he makes systems that are typically 2 million plus. With our system for the funeral home, the Ball systems engineer, Ken Presley, designed a system, and with the professor's help, we can sell it for 105,000. That'll kill all the prions, destroy all the pathogens. But it'll be made here in Colorado.
Thank you.
What's your timeline for this? I know you mentioned the joint venture in 62 countries and that it costs $105,000. How quickly can you churn out these companies or these devices to actually get to funeral homes and change the industry?
We need to make about 200 systems quickly, so we can crank out about 5 to 10 a day. And there's a real need. There's a place in the US, which I won't mention, but it's in New York City, where they've got about 2 million bodies on an island that is contaminating it. And we're looking at doing some work there.
What's your strategy for developing brand recognition?
Well, fireless tells a story. So I think fireless cremation is about as pointed as you could get because we don't emit any smoke. There's a number of associations, the Funeral Directors Association, all countries have them. Every little state has them. So we can be sponsors at them. We can bring our systems to them. But funeral homes are identifiable. There's 30,000 of them. They have to be licensed. So it's not like I'm trying to find somebody who might want to buy a widget from me or a cupcake. We know funeral homes. We know they have a problem. We know the Department of Health and Environment is coming down on them hard. A lot of municipalities, you can't even put a crematory in anymore because of the emissions. And so these guys have problems. They need us.
How does this change the consumer end? So if typically someone gets cremated and then they get a bag of ash and some bones, it's arguably, I would guess, cheaper for the funeral home to give them that. What happens on that end? Is it more expensive for the packaging and the sort of product that the family gets at the end?
The average funeral home, if maybe go to slide, if you could, go to slide, try 20, go back a little bit. So a typical direct cremation in the US, if you talk to ARP, is gonna be about $3,500. We currently charge $2,500. So we're actually less costly. And the reason is we're not, the currently sustainable funeral, we don't sell cremations. We would never sell a burial, even a green burial. The problem is With cremation, you've got 50 times a safe limit of mercury going up in the air. So why would anyone want to be cremated and harm their survivors? So I think we got a huge price advantage over cremation.
What's the value proposition for the funeral home itself? Besides, you hope that you find an undertaker who has a feel-good heart and wants to save the planet. What's the value in it for them?
Well, there's typically in, let's say Colorado, most funeral homes don't have their own crematories. So they've got these areas where they've got third parties that do all these cremations for them. They have to pay those people. And then also the body leaves their funeral home, which is a disincentive for someone to use that funeral home. So funeral homes that actually have crematories use that as a selling point. I also think compared to burial, which would cost somewhere in the $10,000 neighborhood here in Denver, you can literally start a family burial plot, up in Rocky Mountain National Park for under $2,500. So I think they've got a huge incentive to bring in more business. There's one funeral home we're working with, and right now about half of their business is a sustainable funeral. So we're doing trade work already.
You mentioned that your system is patent pending. Do you have any other intellectual property assets that are registered or pending, such as trademarks?
Well, we got sustainable funerals, a registered trademark already. We're trademarking fireless cremation. I did take patent law, so I did hire my original patent professor's firm to do our patent, but now we've got Samuel Frund, who's a Harvard PhD in chemistry, who also has a patent that he filed for someone else, Mark Muth, who's in here, on alkaline hydrolysis. So I think our intellectual property is very strong.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Guys, there's a fundamental misunderstanding about sports and athletes. We assume that sports are all about the body. the physical attributes of an athlete. But as a wise man once said, go ahead and bring that up. Whoa, so that's unfortunate. Quote's not there. 90% of the game is mental. The other half is physical. Well, we agree. The vast majority of sports are all about the brain and cognition, surprisingly. I'm Tom Pardex, and I'm CEO and co-founder of GameSense. And I'm a former athlete, and I got this chance to play for a while, longer than most certainly. But I was your typical athlete. I worried about the physiological attributes. I wanted to be bigger, stronger, and faster. I certainly understood the psychological components of sports, but I didn't understand that well enough until too late in my career. And so I really didn't get a chance to become better where I wanted to be. So I devoted the next 20 years to studying cognition, behavior, and specifically reflexive behaviors. And then I partner with other scientists now to help athletes get better at these really, really important skills. So we have two missions. Number one, we're gonna make cognitive training as universal and important as physical training. Number two, we are going to make this accessible to everybody. So whether you're pro, amateur, young, old, privileged, or underprivileged alike, we want everybody to have access to this, and we'll give it away to certain sections of the population. So what are we talking about? We're talking about fast, reactive decision-making. These are the decisions that athletes make constantly and that dictate success. Let me give you an example here. Go ahead. And you gotta, unfortunately, can you go back one more? Yeah, we love the technology. Okay, so tennis serve. Returner tennis serve is not only a physical skill, it's actually a cognitive skill. You've got to understand when that ball's gonna be there and when it's gonna be so you can hit it. Next, same thing with the baseball. Want to hit a curve? Don't just work on your swing, you got to work on your brain. Go ahead. The problem is these are really difficult to train. They take a lot of time, massive amounts of repetition. They need game-like experience, and nobody's even dealing with them right now. Coaches and players don't even know what these are. So what we do, excuse me, geez Louise, go back here. No, I'm sorry. All right, so they're not even being neglected. Nobody's even doing anything with them. As a result, these are incredibly undertrained, measured, and underdeveloped at this point. So what we do is we train these things. Go ahead, next one. It's amazing how much we do non-consciously that we don't even realize. One is facial expressions and body language. We interact with these, we get feedback, and we innately learn these things. GameSense is tapping into the exact same abilities. By doing something over and over again, increasing levels of difficulty and immediate feedback, you can get better at these skills. Next, please. So by interacting with thousands of videos, players get better at these fast reactive decision-making skills. What we're doing is we're supercharging the learning process. And what we've seen is that we can increase the skill by 100 times more than traditional methods. We make it fun, interactive, and best of all, this can be done anywhere, anytime, without any wear and tear on the body. You can go ahead and advance. And yes, it works. This is some feedback we just got unsolicited from one of our D1 college baseball coaches. They only used it for 4 months, and they saw significant increases even in a truncated season. We can do this because we have a tremendous team. We are some of the world-renowned experts in decision-making, sports science, Drs. Peter Faddy and Len Zajkowski. Paul, our CTO, has FinTech, EdTech, and Sport Tech experience. Dave, our COO, has started 4 businesses with 3 successful exits. Jamie Coffey, our VP of Marketing, is a seasoned marketing veteran. And me, I'm a former pro athlete with a PhD in psychology and an authority in sports technology. Go ahead. And we're talking about a very big market. Right now, we are currently only in 3 sports, but we project with 6 sports globally, this is a $23 billion market. And we're not talking about pros or anything. This is youth and amateur markets alone. Further, we're not talking about just any run-of-the-mill athlete. We're talking about what are called core participants. These are people that participate in their sports a lot. So how are we going to get to these guys? 2 ways. Number one, we are partnering with large distribution partners right now to get to more people, get into the hands of more people. These are people that put on tournaments, showcase events, train thousands of people that come into their events, and even sport governing entities. For example, we're partnered with Softball Australia, who's in charge of softball for all of Australia. These guys were doing resale and revenue share opportunities. And then for the consumers, we're doing making our app as fun and engaging as possible. And with those guys, we have an extensive freemium program, subscriptions, as well as add-on or in-app purchases. We've been pretty lucky in these last 18 months as well. So we made $250,000 last year. We worked with 7 MLB teams, over 60 colleges, 1 Olympic team, and we had 25,000 downloads, all without any paid advertising. Next, please. 2020 has been a bit of a struggle for everybody. So we have focused on 2021 right now. We have 2 letters of intent worth over $1 million and 65,000 users. And that's just more. We have more in the pipeline. Next, this next year, we're going to bring out a brand new design that's going to be highly gamified and interactive for our athletes. We're going to close our seed round. We're going to launch our new tennis app in partnership with Tennis Australia. And we're going to sign up 250,000 users by the end of next year. Why now? Well, threefold. Number one, this is an interesting, we straddle between esports and traditional sports. You can actually play an esport and get better at a traditional sport. Doesn't exist yet. Number two, this is the decade, this is the century of the brain. No matter what industry you're in, this is where we're going right now. This is exactly what we're into, cognitive skills. Lastly, this is a huge opportunity. We have very few competitors. We can capture a lot of market share right now, and we can widen our moat as a result of that. So please help us in making cognitive skills just as important as universal as physical skills and giving this access to all athletes, regardless of where they come from. Join us and join the revolution. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Will you talk a little bit more about how the app itself works?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you go down to, why don't you go right here to 110. So what you're doing is this is an app that you have on your phone or a mobile device, and you're going to see these videos, but they're cut off. They're cut off before you actually see the entire thing. And that's called temporal occlusion. And that's because these actions happen so fast, you have to initiate your action well in advance of that ball getting to you. So we show them these specialized videos, and then they get immediate feedback, whether they're right or wrong. They get to see the full replay. And by repeating this over and over and over again, you begin to build up your database in your brain. So you know that when that curveball pops up, that's a curve, I can stay on that, or that's in the dirt. And then the same thing we have is an esports leaderboard. So we're trying to make this as gamified as possible because we know that if you do that, you get better. Our biggest hurdle is just making sure that athletes do it. But it's not unlike lifting weights or going to the batting cages. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit more about the business model itself? So you talked about working with professional teams and independent users, and then you have a user metric, getting the number of users on the platform. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Really, this is product-led growth for us. We want to get as many users as possible. We have I shouldn't say the expression, but basically we work with the pros just for the notoriety and the data. Our play is the youth and amateur market. That's where the huge play is for us. We're doing a B2B2C model. So we have started to go out and partner with these entities that can put us in touch of 10,000s, maybe in some cases, hundreds of thousands of individuals right there. So instead of giving your money to Facebook for all the individual consumer kind of direct-to-consumer advertising, we'd rather go to these entities and partner with them and then do a revenue share or do a resale, a bulk kind of discount resale for those guys.
Okay, sorry, to clarify, so the user themselves are paying a monthly membership fee or, okay.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Monthly, we're doing quarterly and annual right now, and we also have in-app purchases, so tests can be a one-off monetization.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What is your seed round going to fund?
What is
your seed round helping you do? If you're already 250K in revenue, what's the seed round helping?
Yeah, the seed round is just going to basically launch us into the stratosphere, we feel like. I mean, yes, we're moving and progressing, but with money, we can really go out and dominate this market right now. So that seed round money would be for primarily development. 66% of it would be for development opportunities, so software development, and then the rest would be devoted to business development and to marketing.
Do you have any intellectual property protection for the app?
Great question. So yes and no. This is a cognitive skill. This is like a mnemonic device. I can't patent helping me remember things in this office by associating something with iron or steel, right? This is something that's just out there. It's been out there for decades. What we do have, though, is data. And we have algorithms that show that this is an important skill, and we've created the first standardized test for these skills now, which is highly valuable and certainly IP protection. But the ability to patent the idea, just not possible. Like I said, it's just like patenting any cognitive skill. that answer your question?
Sure, yeah. What about with respect to your branding strategy? Have you thought about intellectual property protection with respect
Branding
to that?
strategy? Yeah, we filed for a logo trademark right now, and we're really trying to build up that aspect because GameSense is something unique and people are starting to understand it. Guys, I apologize for the technical errors here. You know how that goes. Especially when you don't get to touch it at all and all that kind of stuff. So I apologize for that.
No worries, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
Calm, peaceful, relaxing. This is what my wife and I found by the water when she turned to me and asked, "Can you bottle this?" And I thought, yes, I can. Hi, I am Brian Ray, owner and inventor at Innovative Fountains, and today I'm going to share with you our formula for bottling tranquility. So sitting in that tranquil moment, I realized it was the sensory immersion that I needed to bottle. The sight, the sound, the scent, the touch. I just needed to finish the equation. And then it hit me. It was going to take 3 calming products and 1, a water fountain for the soothing sounds of water, a scent diffuser to disperse the essential oils of nature, and a flameless candle to adjust the lighting to fit any mood. Oh, so I gave the signal too soon, but this was designed, if we can go back one, that would be great, designed for the home decor category, and that would then be my equation for our patented trademark product, AquaFlame. Yeah. So going home decor, set the price at $39.99. That way you can enjoy it in the bathroom for that spa experience. Bring it to the office to help reduce stress. Make a calming environment in the living room, the bedroom, the kitchen, and of course, outside for the soothing sounds of water. AquaFlame is designed to enhance any decor. So we took it to QVC. If you've ever seen your product on TV, what an exciting time. You're nervous, you're anticipating how this is gonna go. Are people gonna understand the product? Are they gonna enjoy it? Then the sales counter starts. 1,000 sold, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 sold out. So during our 3-year run, we sold over 400,000 fountains. So the great thing about selling on QVC is we were able to test different configurations. And from customer feedback, we actually made 3 different product revisions to fit the customer expectation. So behind our revenue model is through, for some reason did not come out, is through our non-exclusive licensees. Boston Warehouse handles our independent and specialty retailers. They're selling our 3rd generation AquaFlame. And then we just brought on Shanghai Daisy for our jump to mainstream. For them, I designed a 4th generation AquaFlame. This has a removable core for the ultimate in flexibility. So behind every AquaFlame are thousands of 5-star reviews and a team dedicated in delivering tranquility wherever you are. So we launched in a new category, the flameless candle fountains. And from that, the competitors are circling. So we actually identified even more opportunities above the saturated market point for the customer that's looking for the high-end fixture, and below the saturated product mark for the DIYer. 3 factors these competitors do not have. They do not deliver a sensory immersion. They do not have this vision. Now we're into the patents, everything's messed up, here we go. Okay, and third, they don't have the IP protection that you saw. We have multiple issued US patents, trademark, and a patent pending PCT International application. So we'll see where we're at. So let's talk one more. We're going to talk about the markets. So we launched as an innovator in the fountain category. Zoom bomb. Oh, hey, sharks. Thanks for zooming in. Of course you're following Denver Startup Week. So as I was saying, we launched as an innovator in the fountain category. And what's so unique is the buyers positioned us in the home decor category as a decorative accessory. So now, with over 600,000 fountains sold, it's the customers that have placed us in a $4.7 trillion wellness category as a wellness solution. So the numbers. We started with $500 cash. There's been over $2 million in development. Our early adopter sales are at $12 million. That's showing a 5x growth with our jump to mainstream to $65 million by 2025. The second bout numbers that should have dropped right here are exciting. We've done this with 0 debt. We've reinvested to $3 million in assets, and we own 100% of the company. Thanks, Sharks, for chiming in. So to recap, at Innovative Fountains, our mission is tranquility, designed to enhance any decor with our patented technology of water, scent, and light. Now, my old man would ask me the same question after every presentation. Did you ask for an order? So I asked you to go to Amazon Smile and order your own AquaFlame and bring tranquility into your home, knowing that with each purchase, a donation is made to water.org, where we are proud to support their mission in helping families worldwide get access to safe water. So we thank you for your purchase and changing lives with water. Special thanks, Denver Startup Week. Love to answer any questions.
Have you had to address any counterfeit products on Amazon or other e-commerce sites? And what's your strategy going forward for addressing those if you haven't yet?
I missed the first part of the question.
Have you experienced any counterfeit products being sold on Amazon, and what's your strategy for dealing with those?
You betcha. Me Too. So you don't have a product if you don't have Me Too's coming after you. Amazon will not touch it with a patent because only a judge can declare patent infringement. However, if they use my trademark AquaFlame, they have removed the name. So the strategy going into it, I've got 63 patented claims under protection. So the Me Too products are all failing just because they can't do the combination without infringing on that. So, you know, I monitor them. I make sure they don't use my trademark. And, you know, as you know, I've got 6 years, if anybody does infringe onto my patents, to build a plan moving forward for that.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your metrics there? Show you in 2025 doing about 65 million in revenue and sales. Tell us kind of your strategy on how you get there. You're in a lot of high volume channels right now with QVC and Amazon, those kinds of things. So talk to us a little bit about that.
So Shanghai Daisy was brought on last year to do mainstream. So my early adopters are handled through Boston Warehouse, my first non-exclusive licensee. And that's what QVC was, to work with the early adopters. So the strategy moving forward is we were going big box. We were accepted into multiple programs. COVID slowed that down. It postponed it. It did not stop it. So we're going to go mainstream. Shanghai Daisy has their own factory in China. So we'll be going that route. But that's why Denver Startup Week is so important to me right now. That landscape of sales are changing. The sales models are changing. And, you know, we just got a huge hit with the wellness category because they identified AquaFlame as a wellness solution. So I'll be pitching to them in Florida. So moving forward, it's going to stay with independent specialty retailers. We're going to go mainstream. Right now it's set up to go through big box. And then we're going out to the bloggers and getting more of an e-commerce setup. Both licensees are not set up for e-commerce. They're both business to business. Sure.
You've mentioned wellness a couple of times. Can you talk, have you guys done any research of your own about the sort of psychological impacts or the wellness impacts of the flame, the scents, the water, all of that? Just
great question. Absolutely, 100%. So we play to 4 of the 5 major senses: sight, sound. The sight, we have the different color lighting. Sound, the falling of the water. Touch, which is so important that everybody forgets. The minute you touch this, you get grounded, and it kind of transports you to whatever tranquil moment this water is bringing back to you. So the reason why the wellness market identified us as a solution is because we deliver the same benefits to the apps, to what Calm is doing. It's all a pursuit of tranquility. That's our mission, tranquility. So in that market, the yoga users, people with meditation, the chakras have all caught on. And I found that path from just reading the reviews. We've just have, you know, with 600,000 fountains sold, we've got a lot of reviews. So I learned to read the reviews and listen now to what the customers want to position it.
How do you see your intellectual property strategy evolving over time as your business grows?
So the first steps are the United States. So all my patents are issued in the United States. I have a international application, PTC application. Hopefully with the help of Denver Startup Week, I'm going to add a couple countries. I'm going to add China and the UK. So whenever I make a product revision, I update the patents. So being first in line, people have to design around my 63. So on this little guy right here, I've got 63 different issued patent claims. And I'll build on that format along with the trademark. You know, trademark's easy to enforce. Patents are a little bit easier. That's why they give you the 6 years.
Have you considered design patents as part of your strategy?
Yeah, you know, I'm not a big believer in design patents because you can get around them. These are all utilities, so it's on the function, how it works. You know, I know the cost is less, and I can, one strategy is just to throw a ton of design patents around it too. I just chose to go utility. And then that way, you know, I have the function of the unit, whereas this can, you know, this can be used anywhere. It, you know, it simply comes out of the vessel and you can put it into any vessel that you want.
I think our time's up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Felt like a sprint.
In 2020, customers have been clicking play on videos and watching live streams more than ever before. And as we've learned this week at DSW and with the ongoing pandemic, online video is an important part of, it's an important part of our new reality. So as customers engage with your brand through video, what does the lighting, video, and audio quality actually say about your brand? You deserve the highest quality video every time you're online, but that can be difficult without having the expertise or the equipment. My name is JD Gonzalez. I've been a cinematographer for over 10 years, and I'm the founder of Live a Little. Live a Little is a low-cost, subscription-based live stream video production and podcast studio, and it's a new model for the $300 billion digital marketing industry. We give our subscribers a set amount of hours in our studio so that people can live stream straight to YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, LinkedIn, or they can take a high-profile call through Zoom. Or they can go in and record their videos to take back home with them. So do you have a big online presentation? Set aside a couple hours or set aside an hour, come on into the Live a Little studio, and we'll make sure you have high quality video, audio, lighting, the works, and a dependable internet connection. Or have you been working on some how-to videos during quarantine? Maybe you can knock out all of those videos in a few hours at the Live a Little studio. So Live a Little is not just another white-walled studio. What makes it special is that we give you a branded look every time you come into the Live a Little studio. So we change the lighting, camera, and background to match your brand so that you never feel like you're in someone else's space. And you have consistency in your videos. So are you a tech startup looking for a clean, simple look? Or are you a makeup artist looking for something with that little extra color punch to add to your blog? Or maybe you're a musician, just wants to add some spice to your online lessons. Or maybe you have a true crime podcast, and you probably know Kaylin. Or maybe you have a true crime podcast, and you want that extra noir look. Whatever your brand, Live a Little can match it. Whatever your brand, Live a Little can match it every time you walk through the door. And that's not my favorite part of Live a Little, because having monthly hours in a studio also allows you to give a little. You can choose to give your hours to anyone in or outside of your organization. Or if you give your hours to a chosen nonprofit, we'll roll over some of those hours into the next month so that you get a little more. This is how we infuse inclusivity and diversity into our immediate communities, by making media and high-quality video accessible to anyone. So live a little online, then give a little back. So how much does it cost? Live a Little costs, we're gonna go forward to, Live a Little costs $4.99 a month for the first 2 months, and then $6.49 a month after that. We give our subscribers 10 hours in our studio, which they can use in 2-hour blocks, or they can use the entirety of that 10 hours in a single day. It's up to them. We also have a la carte options, such as a teleprompter, second camera, live switching, and basic editing. This is about 20% the cost of what it would take to hire a video production company to come in and do the exact same setup. We remove the need to rent equipment, to hire crew. We have the space that's already set for sound. We have backdrops and a multitude of lighting options. It's all there and ready to go. So how do we know that there's a market? I've been a filmmaker, as I've said, for over 10 years, and it's just a constant theme over and over and over again that people want high quality video at an affordable cost. Well, I haven't really marketed this yet, and I'm already lined up subscribers, and I only have enough room for 10 subscribers within the first 2 months. Also, I've had people willing to pay 2 to 3 times the cost of a monthly subscription for a single day in that studio. Also, and I bet everyone here and everyone listening at home can think of at least 3 people that could use the Live a Little studio right now. We've also partnered with DSW for some of this week's pitch, or for some of this week's content. So Live a Little is set to, like, if with a new location, we could break even within 6 to 8 months. With the current location, we were able to break even within the first month and a half because we were allowing those one-time subscribers to come in, which means my production company was able to come in and use the space as much as we like. If you had a production company, you could also come in and use that space on a subscription level. Live a Little is set on being a community resource. And we do this by connecting ourselves to, we want to do this by connecting ourselves to co-working spaces and offices that value their surrounding communities. This is why the Commons on Champa is our first location, because the Commons is built to grow inclusivity and diversity within the entrepreneur industry. Also, because we know co-working spaces and like are also into that community spirit, because we know co-working, like there are many more co-working spaces that have that community spirit, we look forward to working with investors to get into those co-working spaces and build on the Live a Little vision. So I hope that you see the value in having a studio space like this for an entrepreneur industry, as well as for our nonprofit communities. I founded this company to make high quality video accessible and stress-free for everyone so that anyone can live a little. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much. It was fun to see familiar faces up there. Talk to us a little bit about scalabilities. I know that you want to do this in co-working spaces, but what does it cost to set up a studio, and how many people does it take to run it, and how is that scalable outside of Denver or even within the state of Colorado?
Sure. So one of the coolest things is that after the art, once we set people up with their brand, it really becomes a science. So we have settings on all of our lights, and we have specific spots, like a gridded structure around the room. So if you're set your light at A4 at this intensity with these colors, then we can match that anywhere. So that's something that can be taught to people. As far as scalability, putting it in other studios, we want, there is a multitude of freelance filmmakers out there who are not working right now, especially in this time of the pandemic, who have these skill sets. And there are people who come out of school who learn these things and do not have the outlet to let it out there. So scalability, I feel like we have a network of people out there that can work these studios. And as far as cost goes, right now it's $15,000 to get it up and running as an initial expense. I believe we can get that down to about $8,000 with the right equipment. And as time goes on, equipment has only gotten cheaper. So that cost is just going to go down and down and down. And the beautiful part of this is, you may have seen this, my space is 14 feet by 17 feet. It's a small office. It's a quarter of the size of this room. So part of what we're doing with Live a Little is figuring out, what do people really need? We don't need a giant room with a huge sick wall. We just need a small space to walk in and record ourselves that doesn't have the reverb like this room does. Mm-hmm.
What's your strategy for generating brand awareness for Live a Little?
So I think there are a couple things. One, we are a live stream studio. We create content. We are actively, so I'm planning to have weekly events happen with the Live a Little studio and gain a following that way. That also cuts on marketing costs immensely. So anytime, my general rule of thumb, anytime the space is not being used by a subscriber or paying option, we want someone in there. Someone should be in there filling that space, because there's always someone who could be using it. So that's our main strategy. Otherwise, I think it's just basic marketing tactics. Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your pricing model? So how did you come to that? What's the value proposition for somebody who would see the benefit in using the services on an ongoing subscription basis?
Sure. So I'm looking at marketing directors. Or marketing companies. I'm thinking I was talking with someone who owns a fiddle school who will absolutely be using our space. She just needs a place to record her online lessons once a month. She'll use it for 8 hours. So that fits well within her model. Before that, she was, well, I don't think that's really necessary. But so basically, I run a production company as well. And I found that I could not get these costs lower than $1,750. And it's so expensive because I have to prep the equipment to take over to their location. I have to set it up using whatever resources they have. So I don't know what room I'm walking into half the time. Or I have to go in and scout the room before I even get there. So this just slashes all of those costs out of the way. And part of the reason I wanted this as a subscription was so that people could, I think people will enjoy the subscription because, well, I mean, one, it's already cheaper than having the needs, but also it's cheaper than building their own studio. It's cheaper than, it's just cheaper, the cheaper option in general, and it's all there and ready to go. Sorry, can you give me a second part of that question? I think
it was good. I just wanted to know how you came to the pricing model. What's your value?
Pricing model,
So,
yeah.
The fiddle player as your example there.
Sure.
The fiddle player is the example. She pays ultimately $650 a month, basically, is what they'll be paying. Mm-hmm. How does that equate to increased revenue for her as an individual or independent entrepreneur?
Sure. So for her, with the pandemic, she was able to receive about 60 subscribers in her online subscription at $50 an hour. And she was finding that she was struggling putting 4 days into just shooting videos. So in this case, just one. Sorry.
Great, thank you.
Great. Great. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Garland, and I'm presenting for Revis Public Benefit Corporation. Revis is kind of a funny name. It's an acronym. It's Renewable Energy Electric Vehicles as a Service. How I got interested in this is I grew up in Michigan in a very bucolic environment and was just kind of a country boy in love with nature. All my favorite shows were like Jacques Cousteau and nature and everything like that. In 1988, I realized that the climate was changing. It was on the cover of magazines. I became very concerned about the destruction of the Amazon rainforest. So big lover of life, big nature boy, and I went to school and got a degree in environmental science, which led me to economics, which led me to business as a method for bringing transformative change. And that's what Revis Public Benefit Corporation is about. It's about bringing about change. It's a mission-focused organization to address global climate destruction and income and wealth inequality. These are images of the recent California wildfires. We have immediate climate impacts now, and I'm afraid that the impacts are going to get much worse. So climate science summary, it's warming, it's us, we're sure, it's bad, and Revis Public Benefit Corporation can help fix it. Income and wealth inequality, this slide might be kind of hard to see, but what this shows is the 3 wealthiest individuals in the United States actually have more wealth than the bottom 50%. So just like with the summary of climate science, income and wealth inequality, it's bad, it's systemic, we're sure, and we can help fix it. So what we're trying to do here is build something beautiful and share it with the whole world. And this is what the service delivery will look like is Volt Mobility local co-ops providing renewable energy electric vehicles as a service. Whoops. So consumers and communities are lacking viable alternatives. And what kind of solution do they need? Sustainability in terms of the amount of energy that's used and the type of energy that's used for transportation. They need social systems that are more resilient, efficient, and equitable. And we need a simple, scalable, locally flexible and adaptable solution. And we need a model that's going to use current technology and incorporate rapidly emerging technology. So with all of this, the economic benefits also need to be widely distributed. So this is the solution, is local, employee and member owned transportation co-ops, branded Volt Mobility co-ops. So the vision is human liberation through sustainable transportation. The mission is to address global climate destruction and income and wealth inequality. And how this is done is we're setting up franchises of these employee and member-owned co-ops, Volt Mobility co-ops. So what does a Volt Mobility co-op do? A number of services. All services can be accessed through a mobile app, but also for those that are less technologically sophisticated, through a website and a phone number and live customer service. So we provide electric vehicle charging, roadside assistance for micromobility users, e-vehicle sharing, and in this model you can reserve, rent, and ride electric vehicles all with a mobile app. We have a reservation and delivery service, so you can actually reserve a vehicle ahead of time and have it pre-positioned where you need it, when you need it. And we do electric car ride sharing services and local delivery services. So employees acquire stock ownership through their work, and this is how not just the income from the business, but the wealth of the business is shared broadly among communities. So it's local, sustainable, employee and member owned. So just a word on the size of the market. Food delivery is a $37 billion industry in the United States and rapidly growing. Micromobility is a $500 million industry and rapidly growing. And ride sharing is a $212 billion industry and did have a downturn because of COVID-19, but is going back up. So, so those are the markets that Volt Mobility is participating in, and we've identified 10 user personas that are targeted based on use cases that are pictured here. We've got 17 slides in 7 minutes, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that. But you know, for our local market here, we have a total available market in Denver of roughly 3 million people. The serviceable available market, and those that are over 18, is roughly 2.4 million persons, and our target market between 18 and 65 is roughly 2 million persons. So our primary competition is individual automotive ownership, which averages $708 a month for an equivalent amount of access with a Volt Mobility Co-op is about $200 per month. That's about 40 uses per month. So the Wall Street version of the sharing economy is you share your labor and capital, and the street keeps the wealth and income. So we do have the weaknesses of the current sharing economy, Wall Street's versions: low wages. They have problems where they're dependent upon automation. They have public relations issues and some moral and ethical hazard. Their strengths is they're extremely well funded, and they've been successful in getting big fast. So the strength of our business model is financial sustainability and a socially acceptable form of the sharing economy. So the results is investors get a fair return on investment, customers get affordable transportation, employees get living wages and wealth, and communities get economic development, and everyone gets a beneficial climate.
Can you walk us through a little bit more about the actual infrastructure itself? So you have an app, everything is accessed through the app, but are you partnering with the existing electric mobility services, or are you intending to compete with them by creating your own in that space?
So that's a great question. We basically have a hybrid model for starting, in that our employees and our vehicles will be subcontracted, and that's currently what we're doing to gain revenue. So we're subcontracted with Lyft, Uber, and DoorDash.
So you are already in a market with those companies?
Yes, we're already gaining revenue, but it's 100% subcontracted. Our mobile app is going to be available on the Apple Store and the Android Store starting in October.
And have you guys been working with the Colorado Department of Transportation to clear all of these things? And I know that in anything that's qualified at all as ride sharing comes with a lot of strings attached. So how has that process gone for you? And is that something you tackled already?
Yeah, so that was actually my first stop, was to talk with the state of Colorado about how we would be regulated. And local transportation co-ops are treated very differently than transportation network companies. So we're basically not regulated in the same way.
Could you talk a little bit more about your funding readiness?
Yes, so I'm glad you asked. We have some fantastic opportunities to get started right away. So one of the things that is a immediate opportunity is a 6-month demonstration project with the city of Arvada for micromobility for 400 electric bikes and scooters. We of course have to compete to get this. It's not a done deal. There's going to be an open competition process for this contract, but it's our hometown. And so we have a lot of confidence that if we have adequate funding to get the electric vehicles, that we'll compete successfully in that. So the other immediate opportunity is to actually start doing local delivery service. COVID has had a big impact on our plans and on the general economy. So delivery services are kind of what we're going to be leading with. And so that's what we're going to start doing in October. So we're ready to go.
Can you talk a little bit more about the target market? You've talked about food delivery. You've also talked about the potential market being 18 to 65-year-olds, which is essentially everyone. Is there a smaller market in there? That you're really trying
Yes,
to target?
definitely. So we're appealing to socially conscious, environmentally conscious consumers. They're primarily college educated, primarily between 18 and 36. There is a high level of awareness of economic issues among this group, as well as environmental issues. So we are going to be testing several different messages and several different methods to see what's most effective at actually reaching that group. And it's young men and young women, 18 to 36.
Will you talk a little bit more about your team?
Yes, I have a fantastic team. So Bob McGrath is our Vice President of Marketing. He has 10 years of marketing and event management experience. Darlene Evans is our Vice President of Customer Service. She has 30 years of experience with training and development. Ross Cargo is our treasurer. He has 10 years of experience of developing employee stock plans and providing all of the documentation, the training for those to Fortune 500 companies. Ryan Kennedy, who's not in my slide deck, unfortunately just joined us. He has 20 years of experience in information technology, particularly in data management and data visualization. And so I actually have 8 people that I'm working with and hoping to add a 9th on Monday.
That's great. Well, our time's up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Tai Wei, and I am a co-founder and the CEO of TheraPeezy. We're here to provide you with the easiest way to find your perfect therapist. Basically, we like to think of ourselves as the eHarmony for therapy. Next slide. It's no secret that we have a mental illness epidemic, especially when 1 in 5 US adults experience a mental illness each year, and 57% go untreated. But did you know, for those who do seek care, up to 57% drop out after their first session? That was my personal story. I was a therapy dropout. Over the last 8 years, I've had about 5 different therapists, and each time I felt like something really difficult happened in my life and triggering me to the point of an anxiety attack, I would think to myself, I really need to talk to somebody. And because of that, I would start looking for a therapist. I would go through Google search, online directories, insurance network, finally scheduling an appointment with a therapist. But time and time again, I would realize after just a couple sessions, it was a poor fit. I even had a couple of therapists where our communication styles were so different that I felt a little bit judged. So it definitely was not a good connection there. Because of that, I never learned the tools to really manage my anxiety. Not until 4 years ago, I met my therapist that I still work with today. With her, it was like talking to a close friend. And so I've been very consistent with my therapy, definitely have learned some great tactics to manage my anxiety, and it's really transformed my life. Next slide. This is why we created TheraPeezy. Next slide again. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I think some of the slides are missing pieces. Sorry. This is why we created TheraPeezy, and we took surveys and research and focus groups and really studied what makes a great patient-provider connection. And through that, we developed a proprietary matching algorithm that connects you to your top compatible providers right away on our site. You're able to look at their profiles, explore it a little bit more, and actually initiate a message with them to further explore the fit before committing to scheduling your first appointment. We look at factors that go beyond location and availability, but also at communication and personality fit, and soon cultural competency as well. Next slide. So we definitely acknowledge that there is a shortage of mental health professionals, but this industry still represents over 750,000 providers nationwide. And it has an expected market of $4.3 billion by 2025. Next slide. At TheraPeezy, searching for care will forever be free. And this is because we're really committed to eliminating as many barriers as possible when you are looking for care. For therapists, we do charge a small subscription fee monthly. And with that, they gain access to our tools, our exposure to clients who are looking for therapy, as well as ongoing insights. Next slide. There are many players in this field, and you might recognize some of these players on the slide, everywhere from online directories to networks to insurance networks and self-service tools. But I think if you're looking for your perfect therapist, these tools might fall a little bit short. And that's why TheraPeezy is so different. We are a no strings attached subscription model, which means that private practice providers can really continue to manage their own practice if they want to. We also are network and insurance agnostic. So that means we really have the potential to become the first stop for anyone who is seeking behavioral health care, regardless of insurance or if you have insurance at all. And we don't make you wait. We provide your top compatible matches right away on our tool. And on the other end, provide our therapists with ongoing actionable insights so that they can continue to improve their practice as well. Next slide. It's a really exciting time here at TheraPeezy. We launched May 2020, and since then, we've onboarded over 100 providers in Colorado, and we facilitated over 500 matches. And because of that, we also made the decision a couple months ago to temporarily make the service free for all Colorado providers because of the challenges presented by the pandemic. So we want to grow our provider base as much as possible to support this community and those who are seeking care right now during this difficult time. So we've bootstrapped up until this point. We have self-funded the company, and with additional funding, we'll be able to really increase our marketing and our development of the platform. We already have a really extensive roadmap of new features and improvements that we want to deploy that would improve the experience for both patients and providers. And with additional funding, we will be able to scale and grow outside of Colorado as well. Next slide. We have a really tremendous team at TheraPeezy. We are a group of healthcare visionaries that really believe that taking care of your mental health should be just as important as taking care of your physical health. And that's why we believe in eliminating as many barriers as possible when somebody is ready to seek care and finding you the perfect therapist so you don't have to drop out of therapy like I used to. Finding a great therapist really transformed my life. And I think with TheraPeezy, we believe that we would be able to cascade that access to a good therapist to sustainable mental health care for everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity and your time tonight, and I will open it up to questions.
Can you talk a little bit about how the matching works? Like how you create such a great match between people?
So this project's actually been 3 years in the making. We looked at existing clinical studies that really studied specific factors, but we also coupled that with surveys, a wide consumer survey and focus group with therapists. So we learned what are those factors that make a good patient-provider fit. And with that, we took the top factors and basically weighted them differently, creating this matching algorithm that runs on the back end of our product. One thing I would love to mention is we're incorporating machine learning as well. And so this product and this matching algorithm will continue to get smarter over time as we gain data of, hey, did you continue therapy 3 months later? And how is it going with your therapist? What worked, what didn't work? So we hope that this tool continues to get more precise over time. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any patent protection for your matching algorithm?
Yes, so we have a pending patent. We've submitted for a provisional patent on the matching algorithm. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to take notes and catch up with my questioning at the same time. Talk to us a little bit about your go-to-market strategy. You talked about it briefly in your presentation, but you have two sides of that coin that you have to address, right? You have to get therapists on there and you have to get users on there to connect the therapists to. So talk to us about that.
So what worked really well for us was before launching, we actually had early adopters sign up for a 3-month trial. And so before we even launched, we had up to 50 providers in Colorado on the site. And then since then, we've been growing, 5 to 10 providers each week, which is why the provider base has grown. And then on the patient side, we've done a lot of kind of boots on the ground presentations for lunch and learns at employers, especially right now since so many people are working from home, and we've been able to request some time on a Zoom meeting to present to employers about the importance of mental health care and kind of explaining how the tool works and encouraging people to use it since it's free. We also have found a lot of success with social media and online advertising for the patient side. Another methodology that we would love to explore further would be potentially some licensing agreements with large networks or insurance organizations, because they could onboard their entire network to our site and allow their population to search for a therapist on it. Thank you.
I'll ask a follow-up question if I can. So do you see this platform potentially being able to be used in other areas of healthcare besides mental health?
Yes.
So talk to us about that and where that vision fits into the big picture for TheraPeezy.
Thank you so much for that question. So TheraPeezy, I think immediately next on our roadmap, we have some things we want to deploy that would make it a better end-to-end experience first for the users that are using it for therapy. So like payment and scheduling, things like that. But then eventually, I think that this would be a great fit for maternity. I come from a healthcare background and so do my founders. So I think other areas in healthcare where that personal connection with the provider really makes a big difference. So that would probably be another area that we would look at after a little bit more momentum on the behavioral health side.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about how you're going to address the attrition that potentially will happen after the freemium version goes away.
Yes, so I'll talk a little bit about our pricing strategy. A lot of the online directories that providers are currently using, they're around $39 to $50 per month. And so we actually hope to beat that price and have a much more effective tool. And so I think that would help encourage people to therapists to maybe give up some existing marketing strategies that may not be as effective and switch over. So that's part of our strategy for attrition. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.